In the past 20 years, there has been an important shift in consumer trends in the West. Online shopping platforms have evolved since the end of the 1990s, progressively understanding society and its behavior. Amazon represents the most prominent phenomenon in terms of e-commerce and has grown at a steady pace, disrupting the retail business model that until now it was considered irreplaceable. Large brands had been investing from the 1960s huge amount of capitals in flagship stores inside malls. Shopping centers became an overnight phenomenon outside cities in the United States thanks to the idea of bringing a group of stores under one roof. The mind behind it was Austrian architect Victor Gruen, whom has developed in the 1950s the first concept of the mall, catering to suburban families who had to travel all the way downtown to do their buying. Gruen provided the ability to give in one spot everything the consumer could need with the catch-up of the convenience with the location. Clothing, shoes, furniture, toys, electronics were all located in one spot, placed near a major road network to facilitate local and outside traffic. That's why malls were conceptualized with the intention of driving millions of households into a commercial system developed for the car as the main transportation. In the post-World War II period, we witnessed a major change in urban development. It was the decade of the 1950s that saw North America shifting its rural landscape from farmland to an endless sea of low-density communities. Home developers began to reshape the environment according to the need of the new American dream, a house in the suburb with appliances and a two-car garage for the entire family to enjoy. Families living in suburban enclaves are by default surrounded by a very specific urban design that doesn't allow for the pedestrians to be independent. Only through car ownership it has been possible to move in and out of these places, especially when the public transportation system had been struggling for decades to cover routes outside city cores. In the second half of the 20th century, shopping malls began to appear across the nation, struggling to keep up with the exponential growth of suburban communities. Strip malls, hosting just a few sets of stores, constantly grew to satisfy the increasing number of population living outside the city. The two oil crises of 1973 and 1979 weren't unable to stop the development of tract housing and the extravagant lifestyles of corporate consumerism. In fact, they barely made a dent in government policies, despite the uprise of environmental movements advocating for less independence from fossil fuels. It was then that President Jimmy Carter's warning was ignored after addressing the nation with a concern that the current way of living of Americans wouldn't be sustainable in the long run. Shopping centers, however, continued to rise through the 1970s, 80s, and the 90s, while municipality and state budgets were pouring billions of dollars in urban development, realizing more highways, collectors, and roads in order to accommodate traffic inbound and outbound from the malls. At the same time, cities were neglected the identical amount of funding that would have assisted the rebuild of entire neighborhoods, helping the underprivileged and improving the local economies. Instead, large metropolises like New York, Detroit, and Los Angeles began to experience the decay of entire areas for the years to come. Crime and drug trafficking saw a major peak in this period, making city streets unsafe for citizens to walk. Developers perfectly understood this problem and used it to their own advantage, leveraging more resources from the government to build even more single homes and shopping malls, telling people the suburb can provide a safe and adequate standard of life the city could not. Millions felt that living outside the cities was the new way of the American dream. Nobody could have resisted not to take part into it. It was also a catalyst for society to fit in the stereotypes of the newly crafted middle class. Shopping malls with their huge lagoons of parking lots were emerging everywhere to serve the entire population of car drivers. We have gas stations, drive-through restaurants, tire centers, they all followed up anywhere road will connect to more places. And so we have car manufacturers and the oil industry, which saw a major surge in profits, while the suburban reality will continue to expand. So without a car, you couldn't go anywhere, and car ownership meant personal freedom. It is a concept that always sounded like heaven in the head of millions of Americans, because those living in the suburb had no place to go in their free time. Entire weekends would be dedicated inside shopping malls where families entertained themselves during food court meals, movies, and buying anything they ever wanted. Malls quickly became places of social gathering because suburbia did not have one. The suburban landscape has been architectured not only to host the numbers of cars that had to drive everywhere. In itself, the design of the suburb was meant to host cars and leave aside the pedestrian, and this slowly created a social impact, dividing people and separating them despite living within the same enclaves. The concept of public space in North America is totally different from the rest of the world. Heavily privatized spaces and their policies and unorthodox zoning laws have reduced common areas to playground and parking lots, void of any chance for people to meet and gather. So we have suburban society that would only leave their homes because malls represented the only public accessible place where people could come together and interact. And companies owning malls perceived it very well, so they began to invest in improving their interior design and started to diversify the type of shops and entertainment outlets. Food courts weren't just offering burgers and slices of pizza anymore. They began investing in full-size restaurants to attract people in order to spend their evening dining inside steakhouses and Asian buffet. Movie companies also pitched in and bought cinemas with multiple movie releases and multiple theaters, offering at the same time their own food and fun like arcade settings in order to attract more customers. Bars, hotels, swimming pools, daycare, gyms, dance halls were all added to meet the multiple demands of customers with different preferences. Movie companies also pitched in and brought cinemas with multiple movie releases and multiple theaters, offering at the same time their own food and fun. In other words, malls found a progressive formula to expand their operation with the addition of a better selection for the customers. And at this stage of the evolution, they became the most important reference point in terms of socialization and commerce. Places like West Edmonton Mall in Canada and King of Prussia in the United States turned into symbols of soaring competition in building the biggest shopping reality in North America. It all changed the landscape of urban design for entire cities, as well as disrupting local economies. The influence in the financial market that malls have been exercising has followed the 50 years small corporation in becoming the giant reality they are today. Names like Home Depot, Walmart, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Exxon are just some of the brands that, thanks to the mall and the car culture, grew and became some sort of institution in North America. Today, the shopping experience has changed. The culture of shopping has changed too. 20 years ago, music stores inside shopping centers were attracting waves of teenagers buying compact discs, t-shirts, and all sorts of memorabilia. Nowadays, stores like Tower Records, HMV, Virgin Records have ceased to exist or are soon to be, with people downloading their tunes from the internet or subscribing to music services like Spotify, while they get the rest of everything that they could on Amazon. When internet became commercially available to households in early 1990s, nobody would have thought that everybody could just shop online using just a mouse and a keyboard. The phenomenon of the e-commerce revolutionized the way single users perceive the new shopping experience. Many of the giant retail really never wanted to adapt to this change and kept following traditional and outdated marketing strategy until it was too late for them. Trips to the mall slowly became less frequent in the last decade, and new delivery methods have sprung up everywhere, carrying to destination everything from electronic gadgets to food orders. A new model of economy has made obsolete ownership, so the millennial generation is not buying overpriced suburban homes anymore, or expensive cars, or the same type of goods of 10 or 15 years ago. People are returning to shopping downtown and away from indoor venues in a major change of trend that sent into confusion many corporate brands and their local marketing strategies. All these elements have disrupted the traditional mall experience. As people demand new engagement where to place their investments, this generation of today are skipping the mall in favor of more original brand names. They value experiences rather than physical goods, more than anything else. But what has changed the game was how technology intervened in this process, giving the ability to people to better understand their merchandise, their good quality, and how to interact with them. Online shopping platforms have empowered users to write and read reviews of what they want to buy. They can pass information better than going to the stores and decide whether to buy it or not. As new trends emerged, large retail brands took a heavy slump in sale. We have hundreds of JCPenney, Sears, Radio Shack, and Macy's, for example, all these stores which have closed and leaving vacant large real estate volumes inside shopping centers, which means that top dollars in terms of space rentals has forgone. As this phenomena peaked in 2017, it became obvious the classic retail formula of famous brand had been wrong in the 21st century. In particular, Sears, which failed to find a solution for a never-ending crisis that began almost 20 years ago, one from which they never recovered. And some of the mistakes collected in the last 2 decades consisted in not having a significant digital platform to sell their products online. Their design stores lagged behind and never got out from that 1990s feel. They always kept carrying the same old brands without refreshing their inventories. They also had a weak logo change and some very odd branding strategy that had no effect whatsoever. But most importantly, the worn-out management, made of conservative business ideology, was the one who sank the ship. Other companies opted to buy out their competitors in order to maximize their profits, but it turned out that they've been cannibalizing their very own business sector. And now, without the right competitors in the shape of a brick-and-mortar store, the only thing remaining is Amazon, which seems to be hard to get defeated. Companies like Best Buy is one of the men in this situation, but in Canada it has remained the only electronic retailer around, having multiple locations which are struggling to keep up with rather online platforms. Regardless of latest revamps and redesigns, we have too many shopping centers in North America that have closed doors. Malls are still bland and sterile in their outside and inside design. They developed a cold and artificial environment that disengages people. They dehumanize the social interactions between people who grew weary of the repetitive indoor atmosphere they've been visiting all these years. Some have become indistinguishable from airport terminals and removed any connectivity with the original purpose. Developers have been too quick in opening up new malls without looking or understanding the long-term trends in shopping. They believe that by constantly bringing on board the large brand names, they will turn a profit. But far too many malls have been built and far too many were identical to one another. One of the other influential factors that had stores closing down their location inside shopping centers were absurd and expensive lease terms and payments that pushed away every single brick-and-mortar shop in favor of placing their platforms online. And it turns out, online is truly the best place to advertise and sell their goods, since everything is digital and everything is mobile nowadays. In fact, the cost cuts for brands are in the tunes of 100 millions per year. There is also the need for change to happen. People have understood the redundancy of finding shopping malls as the only alternative to hang out and socialize. And even if teenagers still flood food courts after buying their clothes at H&M or American Eagle, there is an important and influential counterpart that prefers staying away from all these places. They are the generation who prefer experiencing things like traveling, trying alternative food, or gathering at different places like open patios and independently owned venues. They also require new and exciting prompts if they still want to be engaged by big companies and into brand loyalty. The world isn't seen anymore through the screen of a television set. No information is passive anymore like it has been until recently. The rural landscape has been ravaged for decades by cement structures that stands out like sore eye. They have been altering the way cities and their people behave and grew. Large retail centers were the first in the past to drive out business and local economies made of independently owned stores. Families avoided going downtown also due to parking space limitations. Malls thrived because their convenience to pull large numbers of families with their cars was one of the first reasons of their success. However, times did change and the trend has reversed as public transportation networks have slowly improved and business models like Uber and Lyft make it possible to be everywhere at affordable prices. After years of struggling remaining open and to offer decent lease rates, many shopping centers have closed their doors for good. What's left of cement building is swamping real estate that has yet to be reassigned. Cities never developed a contingency plan for abandoned urban spaces of this size, and until then, they remain abandoned to their fate, rotting away while nobody is willing to pick out a failed business like a mall. While they remain deserted, their condition attracts crime and homeless, seeking a quiet place to exploit, and this started the process of property depreciation in the surrounding neighbors, triggering a domino effect for the whole community. Here we have city councillors that have been slow in tackling this problem. There have been cases where the city turned failed shopping centers into successful stories of retrofitting projects, like McAllen Main Library in McAllen, Texas, which was formerly a Walmart, and now it's a 123,000 square foot reference point for book lovers. Reshaping the future of shopping centers is something that a few architect firms are trying to do, by proposing a more organic approach tailored around people rather than cars. New concepts involve the creation of low-rise housing within the perimeter of the large parking lot areas. Then, to reshape the main concrete building of the mall according to the need of new proposals, there could be the realization of places like concert halls, live theaters, and playgrounds for the kids. The entire superblock will resemble more our urban space for pedestrian with a European hint, where vehicle traffic is drastically reduced to cut noise and pollution. The aim is to establish the forgotten model of Main Street that once was the heart of the urban fabric. The rest will be occupied by parks and small business in order to boost local economies, while providing several job opportunities for the community. This means less cars on the road clogging highways during rush hours, as commuting can be done on foot by neighboring residents or by implementing a better capillary network for public transportation system. As society continues to change and influence the market, what we have witnessed until today is a whole new behavior that places new milestones in terms of consuming habits. Globalization has opened new channels for commerce to thrive with assistance of technology that plays a great amount of influence within the economy. Today, what remains of them all is a slow decaying business model that cannot survive the 21st century with the fast change paces of trend that have been happening right now. The future for these structures is retrofitting so communities can claim back their neighbors from car traffic and parking lots. Small corner stores are already starting making their comeback, fighting inadequate zoning laws that were never tailored to benefit for people in the first place. The mall of tomorrow and their spaces green, with a shift towards becoming a hub for people to publicly gather and revive neighbors' activities. Suburban enclaves have to ditch their old model of closed communities and embrace a much more organic design in order to survive, or continue to perpetrate the car culture and become the new slums in the near future.